Welcome back to Color Me Impressed. Today I have what I'm calling a winter haul from Color Questopia. Color Questopia kindly sent me these 3 books for review that will be perfect for winter coloring. So we have Christmas Color by Number black background, the beautiful Fantasy Landscapes black background, and then one of their older titles, Penguin Color by Number regular background. So let's take a look at this first book here. We have Christmas Color by Number, and I opted for the black background. This would have been my first black background book, and it is really beautiful for all of your Christmas coloring. So once you open the book, you see their usual information, their color by number tips, and then we get into the book here. So this is using their new 50 color palette. You can see that on the left-hand pages here. And this is now standardized through all of their newer books. So keep that in mind, that if that intimidates you, this book does include those, but fear not. I haven't had any issues with the larger color palette yet. If you pick them as your coloring, it seems a lot less intimidating, in my opinion. So with the black background, I was worried about if any color went over on the black, if it would show. But you can see in this picture that I started that I actually did kind of a messy job, and you can't tell at all with the black background, which is really nice because if you don't color in the lines like I do, then this is actually a really great book for you because the black kind of absorbs a lot of that color. And I found that both with alcohol markers and water-based markers. So I think that's a really great feature of these black background books. Now this style in this Christmas book is a little bit more realistic. You can see some of the faces are a little bit more realistic looking, like this little boy here. So I think this is a good book for that type of style. And then what I also like is the last part of this book here includes all of the landscape pages all in a row, so you're not flipping back and forth in the book. Then, of course, we get to the bonus pages, just in case you're curious of what are included there. A lot of cute black background books. So if you find that you like this Christmas one, it might be a good idea to try out some of these other black backgrounds that are featured in the bonus pages. All right, and then we get to the end of the book and we have a couple extra pages for scratch paper. And then the back of the book with the 50 colors and the color key. So that was Christmas Color by Number black background by Color Questopia. Next up, we have Fantasy Landscapes, also black background. And one thing I wanted to point out about this book is that on this title page, it references extreme adult coloring detailed pictures. So I think just know in advance what to expect in this book is that there will be highly detailed pictures. And also, as the name suggests, there are a lot of landscape images here. So apologies for flipping back and forth, but I want to show you the full pictures as they were meant to be colored. And already you can see there are a lot of smaller spaces, a lot of line work. So that's why the black background is a good option, because outlining in gel pen or whatever medium that you use for the outlining would be a little bit cumbersome. But there are a lot of really beautiful images here. And one thing that I think would be good with this book in particular, due to all of the smaller spaces, is perhaps trying out water-based markers, just because you won't be able to tell as much with any of the streaking. And I think this book is a little bit different than some of their other color by numbers, so that's why I was particularly interested in this one. Again, a little bit more of a realistic style, but still has those creative fantasy elements to it. Another reason that I decided to pick up the Fantasy Landscapes book in my winter haul was due to the intricacy. You know, I thought some of the smaller spaces would be welcome during the time when we're kind of stuck inside in the winter. So later in this video, I will be doing a speed color in this book, just so that you can see how water-based markers perform in these Color Questopia books, particularly the black background. And then we hit all of the bonus pages. Again, I like that they're including some of the black background images in their bonus pages, especially when you're picking up a black background book. It's a nice touch. Okay, and again, getting towards the end of the book. And one thing I forgot to mention is that this is using the new color palette as well with the 50 colors. So that was Fantasy Landscapes, Black Background by Color Questopia. And finally, we have the Penguin color by number. This is the standard white background with the outlines that you can fill in with gel pen or whatever other medium you choose. And this also has the smaller color palette that is unique to this book, with the numbers and colors being different on each page. So I would classify these pictures as kind of Zen doodly, which I'm not always the biggest fan of, but I think it's because they intimidate me so much that having this color by number version is actually going to be really helpful. I think because you're not trying to decide which colors go together or anything like that. I think that's one of the biggest challenges about Zen doodle style. So I think this will be kind of a unique book to try out some of the Zen doodling in. And I'm expecting a lot of these colors to be kind of crazy and fun, not your standard black and white penguins. So I'm looking forward to coloring those. And as you can see, this book has a little bit more of an intricate or detailed style. So I think for those who love doing the outlining with gel pen, I think this will be a great book for you. And honestly, I think it's a great book for any penguin lover. I actually picked up this book because I thought it would be really good for winter coloring when we're kind of still in that mood, but Christmas is over. So I think this will be a fun one to work on in January, February, March, those types of things. And then we have the bonus pages. And you know, I think this book is a lot like that Color Questopia Animals book, which is a little bit more detailed. All right. And that is the end of this book. And then you can see the smaller color palette on the back. So this is Penguin Color by Number by Color Questopia. All right, as mentioned earlier in this video, I will be doing a speed color out of Fantasy Landscape using water-based markers. Now in the Christmas color by number where I had used alcohol markers, I really enjoyed that the black background frame around each picture absorbed any sort of color that went outside of the lines. So when I'm using water-based markers, I'm going to see if that frame kind of helps any sort of messiness that occurs. And the other thing when using water-based markers that I want to look for is how the streaking looks. I think it'll be minimized due to the smaller spaces, but I just want to test that theory. So I'll be using my Ohuhu dual tip markers, the 100 color set. These markers have the brush tip on one side, and then on the other side, it has the fine liner tip. And of course, I'll be using the brush tip for this experiment here. And now, before we start the speed color, a couple things I wanted to mention. The first is that I found the most successful way of coloring in these spaces to kind of minimize the streaking was to color in each space individually. You know, for time, I tried to speed it up and do multiple spaces. And while that saved time, you could also see the streaks. So keep that in mind when you're using water-based markers. And the other thing I wanted to mention is you'll see in a minute here, I make a mistake and color in one of the white clouds with blue. So I do go back and fix that at the end, just so you're not sitting there yelling at me. So yeah, I think that's about it. We'll get into the speed color. Thank you so much for watching. So this is the final product. I think it turned out really well with water-based markers, and I'm sure alcohol markers would be just as good. I really enjoyed this black background that frames each image. As I mentioned earlier, it kind of soaked up the alcohol markers, and the same thing happened for the water-based markers, where it kind of masks any sort of messy mistakes when you're coloring out of the lines. So I'd say if you're on the fence about the black background, give it a try. I think you'll like that aspect. The other surprising thing was, even though this was relatively detailed, I completed it in one sitting in about 35 to 40 minutes. So I would say don't be intimidated by this book. I think you'll enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching.